submarines is a different situation, and this kind of question needs to, at the moment, go to the commander of Arihant rather than any Pakistani at this time. When we cross that bridge, I'll be happy to answer your question. But remember that nuclear command and control from a submarine is an intricate, delicate, complicated issue, and will have to be dealt that way. Just 2 or 3 broad points. When you contextualize what is happening around the world, there are trends that we have heard through our presenters. Whether you want to refer to Brexit, how UK is responding to its challenges, or the winning of the elections by Trump now, or Prime Minister Modi, even the far-right possibilities in France. The trends are indicative of some kind of possibilities of change, and hence the preparatory sense of expect the unexpected and work for it. So that's one takeaway that comes out, and in the context of deterrence and defense, these are issues that states need to think about. You come close to South Asia, the main takeaway from here is the sense of the rising tendency about fundamentalism, go to whatever we want to define it, in India. Now that is a problem for India, which India will have to deal with, but we have faced the problems of spillover, like spillover from Afghanistan, so Pakistan will have some kind of spillover also. India chooses to continue on to the more RSS kind of aspects. In the context of nuclear weapons specifically, anywhere in the world, there are states that have nuclear weapons and find some kind of security threats. Nuclear weapons cannot be wished away. That includes Pakistan, clearly. There are states that have nuclear weapons and perhaps no threat. They need to figure out whether disarmament needs to be the aspect that they need to think more about. For Pakistan and India, the factors that affect these issues are those that tend to nudge regional stability. In the Pakistani perspective, the 3 Ds are ballistic missile defense, the Cold Star Doctrine, and the weapons development, Agni 5, which goes into longer ranges, and the Arihant that goes into the sea, and so on and so forth. So the issue that states need to manage is reduce the possibility of or space for war and enhance the space for peace. That's how Pakistan wants to relate with this broader question. We heard a fiery speech by our parliamentarian who just left. And perhaps nobody tended to focus on where she ended her speech by saying, get onto the table and talk about it. So the dialogue and the need for it is something which will significantly deal with it. We heard a comment by Dr. Shaukat Hamid. We didn't get to respond to it because he did not expect a response. But one aspect that I remember from Mr. McNamara's visit was his continuous, every few minutes declarations of please learn from our mistakes. So that's the kind of scenario in which you need to deal with, focus on, and Pakistani position clearly is to enhance space for peace. Unfortunately, the current Indian position seems to be in the direction of increasing space for war through the weapons development and whatever. We hope that if there's more semblance of getting onto the table for dialogue, then this process can turn around. My usual comment has been if Prime Minister Modi actually believes in his development agenda, it will make perfect sense for him to have better relations with Pakistan so that he can focus on that. The region needs development, everybody, for the good of the people. And I think this is where this session should end. Allow me to ask you to join your hands, to thank all these speakers to create that debate.
Thank you, Mr. Banuri and all the speakers. Now we are going to start the third and final session of today's workshop. The session is about membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group and Missile Technology Control Regime, and is going to be chaired by Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi. I request the chair to come and take his seat. The speakers for this session, Mr. Andrew Dorman, Mr. Kamran Akhtar, Mr. Matthew Harris, and Dr. Zafar Iqbal Chima are also requested to take their seats on the panel. Positions. He served at the United Nations, both in New York and Vienna, and in Washington, D.C., London, Paris, and Brussels during his diplomatic career. He was appointed a member of Chairman's Advisory Council to Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, PAEC, after his retirement from foreign service, and served as advisor to the Chairman PAEC on international affairs, with particular focus on IAEA matters. Ambassador Naqvi is the founding executive director of the Center for International Strategic Studies, Islamabad, established in 2010. To proceed with the session. At the end of this session, Ambassador Naqvi will also conclude the workshop with his concluding remarks.
Thank you, Hafsa. This meeting is called to order. We have, as in previous sessions, we have 4 speakers, 2 from the IISS and 2 from the Pakistani side. And I now call upon, without much ado, upon Professor Andrew Dorman for making his presentation. Professor Dorman is Professor of Security Studies, King's College, London, and his research covers the interaction of policy and strategy using UK and European case studies. His particular research interests include nuclear strategy, civil-military relations, decision-making, and utility of force. He has taught at the University of Birmingham, where he completed his doctoral degree, and the Royal Naval College, Greenwich. He is a consultant to the UK Ministry of Defence, the School of Royal Artillery, the US Office of Force Transformation, and Congressional Budget Office. So I think you have added so many institutions and entities to your consultancy list. So you are a very busy consultant there. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the invitation, and thank you very much for the audience for being here. As well. As indicated, I'm from King's College London. I want to emphasise from the start I have nothing to do with Project Alpha, so any questions relating to Project Alpha should be addressed to somebody else. This session very much focuses on the NSG and the MTCR, in a sense in the role of arms control and disarmament when we think about the role of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. And over the last year, we've seen that both India and Pakistan were blocked in the application to join the NSG, and India has joined the MTCR. I think when we think about both those organisations, and also more widely defence, disarmament and arms control, what we're focusing is on maintenance and establishment of strategic stability, the creation of space for peace. And it's interesting when some of the language we've used today, when we've talked about nuclear weapons, we've used the words tactical, battlefield. Well, actually, as one of the speakers from the last session highlighted, when we think about the next actual use of nuclear weapons, whichever state or party uses nuclear weapons next time, it is a strategic decision. It is not tactical. It is stepping over such a significant threshold. It will be seen on the world stage as a significant step. So I think when we think about the language we use, it's very easy to get into the language of tactical battlefield, but actually we are thinking much more in terms of strategic terms. It's interesting if you go back to the Cold War, when the West, NATO, was very keen to use terms such as tactical and battlefield and define these things often in terms of range. they did not, the Soviet Union, the opposition at the time, did not use the same terminology. They had a quite more simplistic view of strategic and sub-strategic. Sub-strategic or tactical was if it didn't hit the Soviet Union. Strategic was a nuclear weapon that did hit the Soviet Union. So it was about whether it hit the homeland or not. So I think first of all it's worth thinking about the language we've been using. But I want to come up first of all with thinking about 6 different reasons why arms control or disarmament may be beneficial, both to Pakistan but also to the wider region. And the first, and it's maybe put forward by a number of the speakers already, is it prevents, arms control disarmament can prevent one side gaining ascendancy or strategic dominance. In a sense, what you can see arms control and disarmament is a mechanism to preserve the stalemate. And actually, what do we want? We want stalemate, we want stability. It helps preserve deterrence. Because one of the great dangers for deterrence is one side or another getting superiority. And one of the problems we have with technology, one that we've seen over history, is that successive weapon systems are developed, but one side or other will try to get ascendancy. So one of the mechanisms for trying to counter that is arms control and disarmament. The second reason for looking towards disarmament and arms control is a way of eliminating an advantage and restoring balance. One of the things we saw in the Cold War was the linkage between the INF Treaty and also the CFE negotiations between conventional and nuclear weaponry. That in pushing through both treaties, that we got a degree of stability within Europe, and ultimately at the end of the Cold War. What we're seeing is actually, by the elimination of certain types of weapons systems, we may increase stability, not decrease it. The third thing why arms control and disarmament may be really quite beneficial is about maintaining this credibility. Because there's also a tendency, a natural tendency, to try and devolve nuclear weapons to lower and lower units. It got to the extreme in the 1950s when the US developed a nuclear mortar, a Davy Crockett mortar assault system, which they deployed at the section level within the army. So you had small groups deploy a nuclear mortar. It was also known as the Purple Heart mortar because the range, the explosive diameter, explosive range of the warhead was greater than the range of the actual mortar. So you had to be brave to use it. But the point about this is once you start to devolve these weapons further and further down, you lose that central control over their usage. So arms control can hopefully start to, and disarm can start to think about what weapons are most dangerous in undermining stability. The fourth reason why we want to start thinking about increasingly look at these measures is about confidence building. There's been, as I articulated already, rising tension between Pakistan and India in this case. But actually one of the things is about reinforcing and messaging to each other, building trust and understanding between the different parties. So one of the reasons for pushing forward with some of the disarmament measures is about building trust, building confidence between both parties. So that actually if tensions do rise, they have a more trustful relationship with one another. They've interacted with each other more. The fifth, and I was very struck by the presentation on nuclear submarines, is it's worth bearing in mind when we think about the development of nuclear capabilities and weapons of mass destruction, is there's a massive financial issue here. That states in choosing to develop and maintain a nuclear system have to embark on significant political and military cost. And that cost can be split in a whole series of different ways between, if you're dealing with a finite defence budget, the more you want to spend on weapons of mass destruction, the more you want to spend on nuclear dimensions, the less there is available for the conventional forces. And one of the dilemmas then can become is you may be forced into a position of escalating towards the use of nuclear weapons simply because you've undermined and undercut your conventional capabilities too much. Second financial dimension, or even if you think it's in terms of science, is a balance between your civil and military capabilities, about developing your own economy. The more resources that are put into developing these types of weapons, it often can undercut and undermine one's economy. If you look at the United Kingdom in 1957, they had a big defence review. One of the reasons it undertook a major defence review in 1957 because by that stage, the scientific involvement in defence expenditure was taking over 1 in 6 of the workforce and over 50% of the scientific base. It was costing the economy too much. And ultimately, if you spend too much on these weapons and these capabilities, you will bankrupt your own country. And worth thinking about when you think how you think about calculating these financial costs. The United Kingdom is acquiring 4 new ballistic missile submarines, estimated cost currently £41 billion. But actually it costs a lot more than that. Because actually if you deliver